Well, good afternoon and welcome back to another live iThemes training event. My name is Nathan Ingram. I'm the host here at iThemes Training, and I am pleased to welcome back Lindsay Halsey today to share with us about SEO keyword research. Lindsay is the co-founder of Pathfinder SEO, where she teaches business owners and freelancers how to get found in Google and Yahoo and Bing. Lindsay is based in Basalt, Colorado, and after 10 years as a partner in a search engine optimization agency, Lindsay noticed that the traditional approaches to SEO left many people behind. Either the cost of hiring an agency was prohibitive or the do-it-yourself solution was just too overwhelming. So Lindsay and the team at Pathfinder thought there must be a better way, so they developed what they call guided SEO. Now today, Lindsay's going to be talking to us about keyword research, and I think you're going to enjoy the webinar today. So welcome, Lindsay. Good to see you back here on iThemes Training.
Thank you, Nathan.
So as we get started today, you've got a subtitle there that is what might catch some people's attention. There's a lot of training out there on SEO keyword research, but you've called this a qualitative approach. What exactly does that mean?
It means that today we're going to set the numbers aside, which may make people a bit uncomfortable when it comes to keyword research, because we think of a very quantitative approach where we are estimating search volume for given phrases. But today we're going to take those numbers and set them aside and look at some of the steps in our keyword research process that we actually put more weight on than the numbers and do first, actually.
Excellent. So it's maybe a little different approach than you're used to if you've done some keyword training webinars in the past. And I'm excited about this one. Lindsay always has a great approach to share with us as we get into SEO. A few details as we're getting started. Again, lots of folks are coming in to the GoToWebinar now. So make sure you head over to the chat room. It's at ithemes.com/chat, ithemes.com/chat. If you're new to us, there's a lot of new names today. Really glad that you've joined us here for this SEO webinar. If this is your first iThemes training webinar, let me remind you, we do not use the questions feature in the GoToWebinar control panel. If you'd like to ask a question during the chat, during the webinar today, we encourage that, and we'll do our very best to get all the questions answered during today's webinar. But we ask that you would ask those questions over in the chat room, and it's always helpful for me, especially on a day like this when we have a lot of attendees, to preface your question with the word question in all uppercase. That way I can be sure to pick it out and save it to the side for Lindsay. Also, as you ask a question, be sure to watch the chat right after that, because I may ask you a follow-up question just to get some clarity on the question that you're asking. So again, ithemes.com/chat is the location for that. I'm going to drop the link for today's slides again there, just in case you missed that. So make sure you get that and download it if you'd like to follow along. One other thing here, the replay for today's event will be available in about an hour after we conclude today, and I've dropped the link for that in the chat room as well. One more thing before we turn it back over to Lindsay is, if you'll note just to the right of the chat room, there is a sidebar banner talking about SEO Bootcamp that's coming up on February the 11th through the 13th. And we'll talk more about that as we wrap up today. But this is going to be a great event, 3 full days, 9 hours of training on SEO. And then we'll have a bonus day if you'd like to do SEO as a business. There's a bonus 4th day the following week about that. So you can find out more information by clicking that yellow button there in the sidebar as we go today as well. So a lot of good stuff to talk about today. Lindsay, we're excited about this one. Let's talk about keyword research.
Great. Thank you all for joining us today. And here's a brief agenda of what we're going to cover today. We're going to start with an introduction to keywords, looking at what are keywords, why is keyword research important, and what are the common pitfalls that we see and mistakes that we see people making. I'm going to share with you our keyword research process, which includes 6 phases. And then I'm going to teach you a qualitative approach that you can apply to your keyword research to really jumpstart it and make sure that you are reaching the right audience and people with the right intent. So first, a definition. Keywords are the words and phrases that people enter into a search engine. They're also known as search queries. This is something we're all very familiar with. Keyword research is a process to identify the words and phrases that prospective customers use to search for your brand, your product, and your services. Or if you're a freelancer or an agency, it's for your customer's brand, product, and services. Why is it important? The number one reason why keyword research is important is because it makes or breaks your SEO strategy. Keyword research is all about helping your website appear in the search engines at the precise moment in time that your audience is searching for a relevant phrase with the right intent. So we really need to go back to some very fundamental aspects of marketing and think about audience and intent in order to get our keyword research right. Another reason is it keeps you in touch with your audience. Keyword research is all about words and phrases. And we want to be using the words and phrases that our audience uses to describe our product, our service, or our brand. And so by using this vocabulary, you are able to stay in better touch with your audience because you're resonating back to them the same words and phrases that they're entering into the search engines and that they're curious about. You can think of keyword research as the foundation of all aspects of digital marketing because the words and phrases that you're going to discover and explore in keyword research are going to be applicable to things that go beyond SEO. Your email marketing strategy, your content marketing, your website text, the list goes on. So we see a lot of common mistakes made in keyword research, and let's take a few minutes to learn from others. The first mistake we see is people doing no keyword research at all. Skipping over this step in their SEO initiatives and even in their broader marketing context, and skipping it altogether. Typically, this is just because either they don't understand the importance and the value, or they're a bit overwhelmed with the process and they don't even know where to begin. That brings us to point number 2. We see people getting overwhelmed by the data. And that's where this qualitative approach comes in. We see people dive straight into the data of keyword research without starting with some of the fundamental tasks and understanding qualitatively what people are searching for, and then they get overwhelmed by the numbers and fail to take action. Another common mistake is selecting keywords that are too competitive. So this is when a brand decides to essentially go too big. They look for search phrases that have really high volume, but their brand doesn't necessarily have the authority and the trust in the space to be able to compete with the leaders in that. Within the world of SEO, the top ranked snippets and businesses are the ones that are getting the traffic. So it's not enough to be on page 2 or in the 15th spot for a keyword. You're going to get very little traffic for most phrases. So we really need to find a sweet spot where there's enough search volume, but that we can actually compete with our brand and with our business. The other mistake we see people make is selecting keywords that are too narrow. So we'll see people that are in really specific industry spaces or have a very complex business jargon that they apply, come to us with a list of desired keywords at the beginning of an SEO project, and we go and we search and we see that even if we were able to rank number 1 for those phrases, we would get little traffic to our website because there are so few people searching for those phrases that a number 1 ranking wouldn't in the end impact sales and revenue because the volume is just too small. The other and last mistake we see people making is taking a one and done approach. So we hear people saying things like, oh, I've already done my keyword research. And when I hear that phrase, I instantly think that there's a little bit of a gap in understanding because I see keyword research as being a task that you do time and again and evolves. We're constantly building on our keyword research, refining, and we're doing this because the data evolves as user behavior and search queries do, but so too does your business. You say you're going to blog once a month on your website. Your business is going into new markets with each one of these blog posts into new keyword spaces, and that every time you're creating a new blog post or a new piece of content, you should be going back to your keyword research and making sure that you're targeting the right audience and using the right phrases. So how do we succeed with keyword research? The number 1 tip there is to follow a process. Here's what the keyword research process looks like at Pathfinder SEO. It includes 6 phases. We start with audience, move into brainstorming, then we quantify, evaluate, map, and repeat. Today, we're going to focus on qualitative keyword research, and that's the first 2 phases. That's looking at audience and brainstorming. So we're going to take a deeper dive into that aspect, and the reason is because we see people typically skip this altogether. They want to dive right into quantify right out of the gate, And then they struggle with the evaluation and the mapping because they don't have a really foundational understanding that came from those first two phases, the audience and the brainstorming. So step one in our process is to get to know your audience well. You're wondering, who is your customer? What solutions do you provide to solve their pain, and how do they communicate? If this is your business, it's probably quite fundamental to your business to answer these questions. You know what your customer looks like, you know what solutions you provide, and you know how your customers communicate. If you're a freelancer, these are questions that you should be really getting to know in the beginning of an engagement with your customer, because these are going to be fundamental to designing and building a website, creating copy, and then getting into your keyword research. So our number one pro tip for this section in this phase of work is to get to know your audience by listening. What words do your customers and prospects use? Here's a little table that shows how there can be a bit of a disconnect between the words and phrases that a customer is using and the words and phrases that a business is using. So if you're a freelancer in the WordPress space, you may use a phrase like, I build responsive WordPress websites. And if you're on the customer side of this, you may describe this in a much more common vocabulary, which is, my website looks terrible on my phone. That's a pain point. So if you are sitting in this phase of work and you're getting to know your audience, what you want to be thinking about is, who is that customer and what are they searching for within my services, within my products? So this customer is unlikely to be searching for a phrase like responsive WordPress website builder or designer, because they don't even know the vocabulary of responsive in WordPress. Instead, they're going to be looking at solutions that solve their pain, or just understanding their pain better. So they're going to look for phrases that are much more common in vocabulary in the search engines. Within the space I'm in, I would say I offer SEO services. But SEO is an acronym that may not be very familiar with every client in our industry space. What we often hear our customers say is, I can't find my website in Google. That is their pain, and so that's what they're searching for before they understand that there's a solution called SEO. I recently spoke with one of our customers and got to know their business better. It's a physician with a very specific skill of basically a surgery for a very specific hand challenge. And so the business basically is specializing in this very specific surgery. But the phrase thoracic outlet syndrome is not the type of phrase that the average searcher is going to put in to describe the pain that they're feeling in their hand. At best, they're going to put in the most common challenge that people think they have with their hands if they're experiencing pain, which is carpal tunnel syndrome. And so this is an example where, as a business, we need to take people across a bridge where they go from a search query around the concept of carpal tunnel syndrome, get introduced to the business and the brand, and understand that a potential challenge or a potential solution they may have may be something very different than what they initially searched for. So in this phrase, you really want to start your keyword research by asking questions, even if you think you already know the answers. Some common questions that I like to ask: how do you describe your customer? What does a term mean? I can't tell you how many times I've gotten into a project and I've forgotten to ask this most basic question, or I've relied on the content on the website to help me create a definition without simply asking the client, what does this term mean that you're using so many times throughout to describe your business? I really need to understand it with more nuance and depth than just a simple definition. And we want to know problems and pain that your customers face in your industry to help frame our keyword research. Once I have this better understanding of audience, I can get to my favorite part of keyword research, which is brainstorming. I turn to Google to do my brainstorming. First, I use Google Search Suggest. So I start to enter in a keyword, and I see what related phrases Google suggests as being like the keyword of interest. Typically, you want to start with something relatively general. In this case, I live in the Aspen area, so I searched for Aspen vacation rentals. And I can see Google giving me a great list of qualitative data, essentially telling me that other people are searching for these phrases. If you enter in Aspen vacation rentals, the next most likely word you are going to put into the search query is pet friendly. And then you can see so on and so forth from there. So I use Google Search Suggest, and I just have a pad of paper out and I start brainstorming a list. And every time I come across a keyword that I like, I go ahead and search for that phrase, and then I scroll to the bottom of the page and I see the search is related to. And so this is, again, what I consider qualitative keyword research. I'm leveraging data that Google is giving me. They're telling me that people that are interested in Aspen vacation rentals are also interested in Aspen hotels or Aspen resorts. I wouldn't have known that people were interested in Aspen long-term rentals. I would have been thinking purely about people just coming here to visit for a week. So I'm using Google to help inform my understanding of a space. And then if I was doing this research on behalf of a client, I could go back and say, okay, out of my brainstorm list, I want to have a better understanding of what matches your business. Do you offer Aspen long-term rentals? And by asking these pertinent questions, I can make sure that I'm reaching the right audience and moving towards reaching people with the right intent. No numbers needed. My other favorite tool for getting to know a keyword space is Answer the Public. Answer the Public allows you to put in a phrase, and they provide you with questions related to that phrase. So in this case, they're telling me phrases and prepositions. They also give me comparisons. So things like Aspen versus Vail for a vacation. So they're going to help me to understand a keyword space with a lot more depth in a qualitative manner. No numbers. Often, Answer the Public is a great way to unpack a topic. So if I'm doing keyword research for a topic that I know nothing about on behalf of a client, I have a handful of resources to get to know that. One is listening to my client and the vocabulary they use. And then I can turn to Answer the Public to have them take a 2 or 3 word phrase and unpack it into an amazing array of qualitative data that I can use to understand what it is that people are searching for on the internet related to that phrase. Once I have my brainstormed notepad of keywords, I'm going to start to organize these keywords into clusters. We want to group like keywords together, and we call them keyword clusters. So in this example with Aspen vacation rentals, maybe I'm going to look at the 2 most prominent locations here and divide my list into Aspen and Snowmass related terms. The reason why we look at keyword clusters in modern keyword research process is because the search engines like context. So in the old days of SEO, you had to be quite literal with your keywords. When you wanted to rank for a phrase, more often than not, you had to go out and create a brand new piece of content 100% dedicated to that phrase and rinse and repeat that phrase over and over again. But what you ended up was with poor user experience. Content that just repeats the phrase Aspen vacation rentals over and over again provides users with a pretty low value experience and doesn't really use language and linguistics to provide the search engines with a lot of context. And so instead, today's era of SEO, we're able to organize our keywords into these keyword clusters, where you can think of the related phrases as adding additional context to the mothership or sort of the primary keyword that I end up selecting. So I start to organize these keywords out on my notepad or in a new spreadsheet, and then I make sure that I've been comprehensive. So the search engines display pages, not websites for keyword searches. And so I want to take a page-by-page approach to my keyword research. That's not to say that every page on your website has to be a magnet for organic search traffic. Some content simply needs to exist to provide value to the existing website visitor. But we do want to go page by page and be comprehensive so that we're not overly focusing on, say, one product in a business that has 3 or 4 primary product lines. And this is one of the ways, if you're a freelancer, that you can really show your customer that you're getting to know them, because you're going down really into the depths of their business and you're getting to know the solutions they provide. And most businesses ultimately provide multiple solutions to potentially a singular problem or vice versa. So be comprehensive, go page by page, and make sure that your brainstorming list and your clusters of keywords really represent the full service line, the full suite of products available. Then I also like to think ahead a little bit here to what page on my website would be best suited to match the keyword of interest or the keyword group of interest. If that page or that content doesn't exist, I may note it on a content wish list to say, hey, you know what, Joe, I found that this is a really good keyword space, but I wasn't really able to find content on your website that matched it. And you can have that conversation with your customer to see if that is indeed a good keyword space and it's just been simply overlooked, and we need to put a roadmap together to create content related to it. Intent is super important in the brainstorming phase. So we want to put ourselves in the searcher's shoes. What is their intent? Does your business align with this intent? If so, then it's likely a good keyword. If not, then it really isn't a good fit. We have to remind ourselves when we're in the depths of our keyword research that we're looking for those nuggets. We're looking for those keywords that have reasonably high search volume and low competition. They're pretty hard to find and may not even exist in an industry space at all. And so when we're in those moments, we sometimes forget to go back to the concept of intent and to make sure that the keyword that we're thinking is this nugget of gold, this really great opportunity, actually aligns really well with the business's intent and the solution that we provide. Sometimes we see a little bit of a mismatch there. Competition is another big one to be factoring in while you're doing qualitative keyword research. So I don't need to turn to third-party tools to get a good sense of what competition lies ahead. What I can do is search for each of the phrases in my brainstorm list in Google and get a sense of how many results, how many web pages does Google know about on the internet that would be a potentially solid match for a phrase. In this example, WordPress designer led to over 300 million results. So quite a bit of competition here. And so this is a really good little education tool that you can use internally if a colleague comes and says, why don't we rank really well for this phrase? Or what do you think about going after this keyword? We can quickly turn to a Google search and look at the volume that we would be up against, but then also look at the quality of the content and the type of businesses that are ranking in the top 5, and ask yourself honestly if your brand is big enough to gain visibility in that space, if you kind of deserve that recognition. Sometimes we see that it's too competitive and we need to get more specific to put ourselves into a really manageable keyword space where we can excel and drive the right type of traffic to our website. Another factor I'm thinking about when I'm doing qualitative keyword research is where does the keyword fit into the framework of a traditional marketing funnel? So typically, our average audience is going to go from an awareness to a consideration to an action phase and making a decision to do business with any company. And so different keywords can fit into different aspects of the funnel and thus have a bigger impact on your sales. At the end of the day, your goal within search engine optimization is to increase revenue, to increase leads. So we don't just want traffic, we actually want the conversion. And that's what the business owner is really going to care about. And so when we're looking at our keyword research and we're doing a little bit of this qualitative analysis of where are we going to invest our time in ranking, we want to think about where does the keyword fit into this marketing funnel? Are we driving people that are ready to hit the purchase button? In which case we want to be visible 100% of the time because these are really highly actionable people. Are we meeting people in a consideration phrase? Maybe they're looking for those versus style keywords. Do I go to Aspen instead of Vail? Do I visit a place in the summer or in the winter? So they're in consideration. Or maybe they're in a much earlier phase in their journey and their keyword fits into more of an awareness level. Ultimately, we want to position our brand, position our websites across all 3 areas of this basic marketing funnel. But if we're going to have to prioritize our efforts, most people would like to see more exposure in the action and consideration over the potentially more competitive, more general awareness phase of the funnel. So I ask myself for every keyword, will increasing traffic in this keyword space impact my bottom line? And I want to make sure I see a clear path of where this keyword fits into the big picture. So our pro tip on qualitative keyword research is to invest more time doing this qualitative keyword research and learning a lot about your audience before you dive into the numbers. And the reason is because we've talked through a lot of these different factors that you need to be considering for each and every keyword as you go. And a lot of those factors and things you can evaluate, you do by just simply having a pen and paper in front of you and thinking through. And so I end up with a nice scratch pad with a bunch of keywords scratched out, others kind of circled to show things that are like, and I'm ready to then start to enter and start to quantify the search volume related to them. So we're going to look at each of these other phases with a little bit less depth, but I want to make sure you see basically where the roadmap goes when you've finished your qualitative keyword research right out of the gate. And step 3 in our process is to quantify monthly search volume. There are a lot of keyword research tools in the market, and one of the biggest challenges for people is sorting through which tool should I use. And they're usually asking which tool has the best data. In my experience from having used dozens of different keyword research tools over the years, it's not about which tool you use, it's about how you use it and the consistency with which you apply to your analysis. And so what I recommend to people is to pick 2 different tools and to collect data on your brainstormed keyword list for those 2 different tools. And so what that looks like, I'm gonna skip out of this, is I go over into a spreadsheet and I start to drop in my brainstormed keywords. Here I have some keywords related to WordPress SEO and WordPress SEO plugins. And I'm gonna pick just a handful, 2 to 3 different tools that I'm gonna use to collect my quantitative keyword research data. And so this is the framework of what that spreadsheet starts to look like. And when I'm looking at this, what I want to do is look for trends. So I'm not estimating and saying, ooh, if I could rank #1 for the phrase WordPress SEO, I would have the opportunity to get in front of about up to 3,000 searches per month, according to the keyword research tool Moz. I'm not taking their data so literally. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm trying to frame this data compared to others and to pick the keyword that meets my intent and meets my competition and factors like that, but that then does have the highest search volume. Trying to answer, does the phrase WordPress SEO plugin or WordPress SEO plugins tend to have the most search volume? And I'm gonna answer that by having multiple data sets to look at. So here's a list of those keyword research tools, and one of them is the Google Search Console. And so if you've been in the Google Search Console lately, what you'll find is in the new version, a performance section that has a lot of amazing keyword data. And so most people think about Google and keyword data, and they instantly think about when Google Analytics decided to add not provided into the organic search keyword list and to basically take away a data set from marketers. And in the Google Search Console, what you find is an amazing array of data for existing websites that shows where your web pages currently are driving traffic, which keywords are leading to traffic, what your average position is, what your average click-through rates, all sorts of amazing data in the Google Search Console. So if you're working with an existing website that's been verified in the Google Search Console, I highly recommend using some of their data, their impression data, to go out and see how many impressions you're getting for some of your brainstormed keywords and applying that to your qualitative keyword research. And then here are a handful of other tools that you might want to align next to that data to try to get this broader sense of which keywords have the highest search volume. So our pro tip here is to gather search volume data from 2 to 3 sources, look for trends, and don't get bogged down in the absolutes. A really common question we have from people after they've done their quantitative keyword research is like, how do I pick a keyword? This one has this search volume, but I don't understand. It doesn't align. The search volume estimate I'm getting out of Google Ads doesn't align with the search volume estimate I'm getting out of Moz's keyword tool. And so they get overwhelmed by that data disparity, rather than looking at in both of those tools, this keyword had the most search volume for any of the keywords in that clustered group of keywords, and thus it is the best choice. This is where the evaluation period comes in hand. So we have a really solid list of brainstormed keywords that meet our audience and in our intent. We have cast our keyword space into a space that seems reasonably reasonable competition, and we have some quantitative data to help support which keywords really rise above the others. And so then I go back to this evaluation and I go back to the basics. These are some of the questions we looked at in the brainstorming, but we really want to ask ourselves, does our business belong in the top 5? Will the traffic convert? We don't just want website visits, we want sales, and we want to prioritize our list. A lot of times I think of the exercise of doing SEO as being sort of a cost-benefit approach. I have to take limited resources, typically my time or my client's budget to allow to pay for my time, and I have to prioritize my efforts. And so as I do so, I want to evaluate my keywords with a real sense of honesty and express to my clients what this huge array of keywords looks like and is nicely organized, and what I think I can target today versus down the road, and what just may never be possible for that brand. Once I've done that evaluation, I'm going to turn to the concept of mapping my keywords to pages. We mentioned earlier that web pages rank, not websites. So we're going to need to map those clusters of keywords to web pages. And this is where you're doing a bit of a content gap analysis. You may find places where content needs to evolve to better meet that cluster of keywords, to better utilize those keyword spaces. You may find other pages that map just perfectly and are spot on. And then the third is keywords where you don't even have a legitimate place to map them. And if you were to try to put them into your on-site optimization for that page, you'd really be sort of stuffing those keywords into a place where they don't belong. And so creating this map for your clients or for your own website is a really great way to start thinking ahead, getting out of keyword research and starting to think ahead to the actions you're going to take with this data down the road. And then I put in the phrase repeat. We mentioned keyword research is not a one and done approach. And so we're going to need to continually update and refine your keyword research. Your business evolves, so too does your keyword space. And so you're going to need to continually go back to your keyword research and evolve the data. That doesn't mean that I'm constantly going back to these tools and searching for the latest and greatest data on the same keywords, but rather that every time I go to create a blog post, or if I'm trying to create a content strategy or a calendar, I'm utilizing these tools to help frame each and every piece of the puzzle. And so I like qualitative keyword research because it makes sure that I don't forget the common sense approach to keyword research, which is thinking about that audience and that intent and the competition before getting excited about the volume estimates that are out there. But I also really like qualitative keyword research because I consider it quick and dirty. It's something that I can, on the fly, do for a customer or do for my own content as I'm creating it while I'm writing a blog post. If I wasn't thinking ahead and doing my keyword research in advance and quantifying it, I can very easily go in and search in Google, use Search Suggest, use Answer the Public to help unpack topics and make sure that the content that I'm creating is going to rise to the top. So key takeaways from today. The first is don't get overwhelmed by the numbers. You can do great keyword research by knowing your audience and brainstorming. The second is you can do keyword research on the fly. Writing a blog post and missing a focus keyword, just use Google Search Suggest and Answer the Public to unpack the topic. Thank you for your time today. I'm excited to answer any questions that have come up, and we can pop around and look at some different keyword research tools as well. If you would like to learn more about keyword research and more, as Nathan mentioned, we have an upcoming boot camp.
Absolutely. So, Lindsay, great stuff today. Really good approach to keyword research that I think can really short circuit that issue that people have when there's so many different tools telling them different things. How do you deal with it? So I think we got a good overview of that today. And like Lindsay is mentioning here, we do have an SEO boot camp coming up February the 11th through the 13th. That's a Tuesday, Wednesday, and a Thursday. 3 hours of training each day that Lindsay will be providing. Lindsay, just kind of give us an overview of what we're going to be talking about during those days.
The first 3 days of the SEO bootcamp is all about taking action. And we're going to break this down into basically 3 different phases of work. Day 1, we're going to talk about technical SEO. Then we're going to look at content and on-site optimization in day 2. And finally, offsite SEO, things like link building and social media in day 3. So you'll walk away from that SEO bootcamp, 9 hours of training, with an SEO process that you can deploy on your website or on your client's website. And then in the business training day, the following week, we are going to talk about offering SEO as a service. So if you were to apply your learnings at the SEO bootcamp on how to actually do the service, the steps and actions to take in that process, on February 19th, we're really going to be looking at how to sell and price and frame this as a service for your freelance or your agency business that might be looking to get into the recurring revenue side of the SEO agency type work.
Awesome. So it's 3 days of SEO training, February 11th, 12th, and 13th. And then the following week, February 19th, a Tuesday, is the business day. So just like Lindsay was saying, if this is a service you'd like to start to provide to your clients, you'll get some really good insight from somebody doing it right now to take this information and turn it into a service that you can offer. You can find out more information about this by clicking the yellow button there in the sidebar beside the chat room to find out more, or I've dropped the link in the chat room as well to get over to SEO Bootcamp. That's iThemes.com/training/SEO-bootcamp. So check that out. There is early bird pricing in effect, by the way, through the 4th of February. So the SEO Bootcamp itself is $199, and you can add on the business day at $249 total for all 4 days of training. So it's a good deal, and I believe that's about a $50 discount that is in place through February the 4th. So if that sounds interesting, take a look at that and join us for that SEO Bootcamp. As always, if you're an iThemes Toolkit member, this training, the SEO Bootcamp and the Business Day are included as part of your Toolkit membership. Now, we got a bunch of questions stacked up here, and there are some good ones today as we get going. If you have a question and you have not yet asked it, please do so over in the chat room at iThemes.com/chat, iThemes.com/chat. That's the best place to get that question answered. Again, helpful to preface your question with the word question, and I'll uppercase like a lot of folks have done here today. Okay, so let's start off with a question from my worst enemy who asks, do you have to optimize for the phrase near me? Like somebody asked, give me the car dealerships near me. Does Google figure that out? How do you deal with that?
The answer to that is no, you don't need to put the phrase near me in your content or in your page title and meta description. Google is trying to figure out the solution for near me search queries through its understanding of your location. And so instead, if we take, for example, a local dry cleaner in, say, St. Louis, Missouri, they're interested in capturing traffic for when someone searches for a dry cleaner near me or dry cleaners near me. And so the way that we give Google that context, those signals to know that our brand should be really well aligned with this, there are several. One is we want to put in phrases like St. Louis dry cleaner into the page titles, meta descriptions, and on-page optimization. So we're taking the service that we provide and the service area that we provide it to, and we're putting those phrases right next to each other in our keyword research and in then our on-page optimization and our content. And that helps Google then say, okay, I'm looking for websites that offer this service and offer this service into this specific area. And that's one of the ways that they're going to pick up those signals. The other ways that they're going to help solve that near me is by having a really good understanding of where your business is located. And one of the ways they do that is via your Google Maps listing. Another is via your really great contact page on your website that clearly outlines your address, your phone number, your hours of operation, things like that. And so the real secret to the near me searches is to really understand geographic area for that service. And so if you're in a big area like, say, Denver, it has a lot of different suburbs, the search query near me may be as specific as people wanting a dry cleaner in the area of, say, a Centennial. So they don't even go for that Denver dry cleaning space. They go so narrow as to just look at their smaller town or smaller. And so that's another area that you're going to want to think about when you're doing your keyword research for service areas.
Yeah, great information there. Jennifer, there's a good question there in the chat. Is it possible to only sign up for the February 19th business add-on day? Currently, that's not an option, Jennifer, but I'll talk to our marketing folks about that, and I don't know if that's something we can do or not, but I will look into it. Let's see, more questions here. Kind of in the same vein, Mike wanted to know if you try to rank for a popular keyword, like, for example, WordPress SEO, is Google going to localize those results so you're not competing with other people across the country?
Typically not for a phrase like WordPress SEO. So this is where we have to go back to the searcher's intent. Does the person who's searching have any care in the world about where that search result is located? And for a phrase like WordPress SEO, the answer is probably no. The world is sort of our oyster, and that any great resource published or solution anywhere in the world could be a great fit. So there's going to be very little to no local intent from a phrase like that. And so if you're finding yourself to be in these larger keyword spaces, you have to basically say, okay, yes, that would be great, but my business can't compete with that much search volume in that big of a space. And so I either need to go more long tail, which means multiple phrases. So maybe instead of WordPress SEO, I find there's enough search volume and that my expertise is really WordPress SEO for small business owners or WordPress tips for beginners. So you have to start to get more granular. And typically with that, you're looking at 4 to 6 word keyword phrases that we call long tail keywords. And that's your solution for positioning your brand, which doesn't have a geographic qualifier associated, into a competitive keyword space. The other option is to think, let's just say you're a WordPress designer. And yes, you do work with customers all over the country. But instead of trying to go after a phrase like WordPress designer, where we looked and we saw there were 300 million different results in that space, instead we are going to add a geographic qualifier. So I could do something like WordPress designer in Denver and beyond, or something, or WordPress designer serving Denver and beyond. And so that gives Google this sense that when we're in the Denver keyword space, we should really bump this website up because that is their geographic area. But you don't turn off the searcher who happened to search from Florida and saw your result, because you do mention that you do serve areas beyond your narrowly defined geographic area.
Yeah, great answer. And let me just ask another little follow-up here. We have a listener, First Class Group Tickets, who's asking, in their industry, they work with event group sales and discounted tickets for Disney, Marvel, Cirque du Soleil, et cetera. And they found their best keyword is discount tickets, which obviously is a huge keyword like WordPress SEO. When you're talking about this idea of like ticket sales or some item that you're trying to sell, and you are in that huge, massive keyword arena, how is the best way to get traffic in that situation?
That's a great question. And so when you look at this, you do a search and you're like, wow, discount tickets has a ton of search volume. But the question that it begs is, discount tickets to what? So you could put all of your eggs in the basket of trying to rank for this two-word phrase, discount tickets, which is highly competitive. Or you could unpack that and start to look at the search volume for very specific queries. And so discount tickets to Disneyland, discount tickets to an upcoming concert, with an artist name. So now you've, expanded your keyword space essentially infinitely to all of the different events that you have discount tickets. And you want to get a good sense of what the patterns are. So do people usually put in discount tickets to Disneyland or Disneyland discount tickets? Which has more search volume? And so you're making your keyword strategy much wider, essentially, by going instead of after discount tickets, but to the actual events. But you're getting into more highly converting keyword spaces. Someone searching for discount tickets to, and then the exact name of an event, or maybe people are even putting in dates. And that are finding your content, these are people that are really ready to buy. They're in that action group, not in that awareness group. And so you can get potentially a little bit less traffic from those keywords because maybe they're have less search volume than something really general, but the actual traffic you're getting is leading to the best revenue. And so When I do that, I tend to take that time to do the keyword research and to look for the patterns in the industry so that I can then apply a more rules-based approach. Maybe I have 10,000 different events on this discount ticket website, and I'm going to get all 10,000 of those pages optimized, but I'm going to do it by following some language patterns that I've determined out of my keyword research.
Awesome. And for pardon me, for Jennifer, who asked about just purchasing the business day, through the magic of Slack, I have communicated with our marketing team, and yes, we'll be able to do that and just offer the business day. And it looks like that'll be a $79 early bird ticket just for the 3-hour training for the business day. So just check back on that sales page, the ithemes.com/training/SEO bootcamp, and that will be updated by tomorrow, I would say, possibly later today. Okay, question from Greg. What if you find a good keyword to use on an existing web page, but that page already has a keyword assigned and it's doing okay traffic-wise?
That's a good question. It's always nerve-wracking to rock the boat on a page that's performing well in a keyword space. And so I do it by asking myself, are these keywords that I'm looking at, the one that's ranking really well now and the one that I think is ranking for that page but could be doing better? I'm looking at how similar are these keywords, and can this page basically rank and perform well for both? So are they in this kind of contextual area where they add value by being in the same page? And if the answer is yes, then I can basically beef up my content to reach both of those keywords. And we call this sort of that keyword cluster, or sometimes I define a primary and secondary keywords. And I'm positioning a page in basically that like keyword space, but really to try to perform well for multiple things. This is most often applicable to your home page, which is the strongest page on your website. Sometimes it's hard to pick like that best keyword for your home page. If the keywords are not related enough to one another, then you have to sort of take that little bit more of a dive that takes some confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to create 2 really great pieces of content. My existing page is doing really well for this keyword, and I'm going to go create that second keyword content, that second page or blog post, whatever it's going to be. And then I'm going to pass some link juice from that first page over, because I know that first page is already sort of resonating with Google in that keyword space. So I'm going to provide some internal links that show Google that if you want to know more about this secondary topic, to go over here. And Google is looking at all of these for signals. So they're seeing, wow, you have new and better content on this topic over here. Even though it's a new page, look at how great the content is. And then they say, oh, and I see this link pointing from the page we kind of used to like for this content, and it's pointing over to this new page. And so they build trust in that new content. And then before you know it, you have 2 pages ranking for these 2 different keywords and doing really well.
Excellent. TS had a question in the chat room about the importance of schema.org markup, and that is something we're going to cover in the bootcamp. Is that right, with on-page SEO?
It is. We're going to cover that, and the importance level is certainly high, but it does depend a little bit more on context around what type of content we're talking about in the industry space you're playing in.
Sure. Good question here from Melanie. What about voice search? There's more and more search queries are happening through a voice search. How does that affect your process of keyword selection?
That impacts how I unpack a keyword space. And so we talk about this unpacking where I take like a short phrase, something like WordPress SEO, 2 words, really general, and I'm trying to get to know the myriad of phrases that surround it. And that's where I love Answer the Public. And so with voice search, we know a couple things. One is voice search results tend to come from long form evergreen content, so 2,000 words plus. And you don't have to write that definitive guide on that specific question being asked or specific query in voice search, but that it's a component within it. And so Answer the Public can help you unpack that. I was talking to a client earlier today. They're in the energy chew industry. So the little bite-sized pieces you can take out with you on a hike to keep you fueled around the way. And so we were trying to unpack the energy chew space and see what phrases people turn to tools like voice search to ask. What questions are they asking? And so people were asking questions like, how many energy chews do I need for a long run? Or why should I choose energy chews over an energy bar? And so we were unpacking this topic. And a lot of those questions lend themselves really nicely to voice search. And so there's not a keyword research tool that I specifically use for voice search, meaning it's going to estimate how many people are actually using voice search around that. Hopefully down the road, we'll have that type of data. So for now, when I'm doing a lot of voice search work, I'm using this qualitative process and looking at the questions people are searching for in desktop and assuming that they're doing the same via voice search.
Yeah, gosh, there really is an art and a science to SEO work, isn't there?
There is quite a bit, and there are a lot of ways to excel. So we're sharing with you a process, that we've developed and kind of some of the trends and things that we've seen succeed. But this is no way meant to be, this is the only way or the highway type approach to things. And so there are other ways to kind of get to the same destination, but this is a way that we've developed that sort of works for most.
Excellent. So we did just put the replay link there in the chat room, and that will be available perpetually at that link. We'll have that up in about an hour after we conclude today. Mike is asking, is it still helpful to put internal links on multiple pages to your site to a specific page that you want to rank well?
Yes, so internal linking is still really important because it is through these internal links that you create sort of a web of importance for the search engines to understand and get context and meaning. So that as a best practice has not gone away. If you poke into the Google Search Console and you look at the new version and you look at the links, they're going to tell you your topmost external and internal links, meaning which pages on your website are getting the most link juice passed to them through your own internal linking in your website and then from third-party websites. So go and look at that report on internal linking and ask yourself the common sense question, like, does this make logical sense? Do my most important pages have the most links pointing to them? And if you're wondering why maybe a piece of content isn't performing as well as you'd like, it could be because you're not providing the search engines with enough context and value through your internal link graph. So that's one place to look.
All right, question here from Greg. How do you feel about KW Finder as a tool compared to the other tools that you listed earlier?
I haven't used KW Finder recently, and so I can't throw out an assessment there. I will look up and try to throw in the chat box. I think Maddie Osman's done some really nice comparisons of different keyword research tools over the years, and she might have a nice resource that does a better job of sort of weighing these tools against each other. When I think about keyword research tools, one of the things we see people do all the time is they invest in like 5 different SEO softwares, 5 different, and they're using them all for different aspects of their SEO campaign. And so they're essentially investing quite a bit in terms of monthly subscriptions into these tools when a lot of these tools have some nice overlapping circles. And so I tend to be in this kind of keep it simple category. And so I mentioned kind of picking 2 to 3 tools. If you like the results in KW Finder, align those results with what you might find out of a Moz or the Search Console or Google Ads or Pathfinder SEO, and use those as your 2 data points to assess the quantitative side of your keyword research.
Gotcha. So we're down to the last few questions here. If you have not yet asked a question you'd like to do so, please jump over to ithemes.com/chat to get that question answered. Here's one from Doe. Doe would like to know, sites with more content rank better than small sites. Is it a good idea to keep historical data like seminar lists, speaker lists, that sort of thing, for a client that only has one event a year?
So I think I'm understanding the question, which is basically you have a client's website and they host or they're part of one event per year, but they have a lot of legacy content that could be behind the scenes. If the event they're hosting each year is the same event, then you want to use that same URL every year. So instead of having event-2018, event-2019, event-2017, and having this really long archive, you would want to use the static URL because over time that URL gets links and other value. So it builds a lot of trust and authority in the web. And so we want to consistently use that. We can change the page copy, but we want to keep that URL really evergreen. And so then you have this archivable content from years past, and you could very well just to keep the website a little bit bigger, you could have an archived page where that event / 2017 houses everything related to that event in the previous year. So there are some other kind of on-page strategies you can deploy here, but it's definitely something you're asking the right questions and you're thinking it through. And you may, if you want me to weigh in more specifically, you can get in touch over Twitter or email and send me the example, and I can be more specific in my answer.
That's a great idea, and it's a good approach as well. Okay, another question from Mike. Mike would like to know, if your business serves multiple locations, what is the best way to rank for local searches in each of those locations?
The best way is to have one page dedicated to each of those locations. And so if you think about, let's just think of a franchise business that has, let's say, a dozen locations all over the state of Colorado, and they're in the 12 biggest cities in the state. So I would want a page for each of the locations, and that page is going to have the content that's unique to that location. So it's going to have my hours of operation, the address, probably a little Google Map simulator. It's going to have some photos. Maybe it'll have testimonials or reviews from customers of that given location. It'll have, a menu if it's a restaurant. So you can think that this page is really robust, dedicated. And then we're going to nest like content in or like locations underneath sort of a content structure. So all of the 12 locations in the state of Colorado will be under a Colorado subfolder, where there's also my brand in the state of Colorado, and I kind of go bigger. And so if you had a really, larger business that was across different states across the country, you could see that this is building out sort of like a triangle of content with the country at the top, the states next, and then the individual cities or regions where these different businesses are located.
Excellent. Noemi would like to know, is keyword research for local SEO different? I have found that many keyword research tools do not provide search volume for a specific area.
That is an excellent question. And that's a topic we will be diving into more in the boot camp, because that is one of the biggest stumbling blocks is you sit down to do keyword research for a local area and you search for the city or the region plus the service or the product, and you get estimates that say things like no data or 0 to 10 searches per month. And that's actually one of the other reasons why I love qualitative keyword research, because if Google Search Suggest is showing the phrase as one of the recommended searches, or if I see paid ads going into the space, then I am confident to say, you know what, there is search volume for this phrase, even though the keyword research tools are basically spitting out like null and really minuscule values. It's a hard thing to give a customer a lot of confidence around because they'll say, well, I'm scared to invest in SEO for this keyword space because I just don't think there's a lot of volume out there. And so the first thing I do is kind of educate around, it's in Google Search Suggest, and Answer the Public is showing this as being sort of a valid keyword space, even though there aren't, there's not quantitative data to back it up. And then if you need even more proof, you can always run a small Google Ads campaign where you pay for the traffic, and you can come back and say, you know what we thought was a keyword with 10 searches a month proved to be a keyword with a couple hundred searches per month. It's really highly targeted in our marketing funnel. It's in that action phase. So we've vetted this keyword and proven that even though the keyword research tools say no volume, that there's some sizable traffic out there to be gained.
All right. One last question to wrap up, and this ought to be a good one. Greg would like to know, is there one WordPress SEO plugin that is far better than the other ones, and do I need a pro version to get the best results?
So my favorite WordPress SEO plugin is Yoast. We consider it sort of a broad plugin that does works on a lot of the different facets of SEO. And whether or not you need the paid or the free version really depends on your business needs. So an example of what tips me over into the paid version is if I have a lot of redirects to add. The redirect manager is really great. There are other features that may tip you over into paid, but the nice part is you can start with the free version, and then if you run into a limitation on a feature set, simply upgrade at that time.
Got it. All right. Really good information today. I've learned a few things that I haven't considered before. Once again, folks, SEO Bootcamp is coming up February the 11th through the 13th. That's a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Also followed the following week on that following Tuesday, the 19th, with an SEO for Business Day, if you'd like to learn how to offer SEO services as a business to your clients. You can find out all that information by clicking the yellow button there in the sidebar next to the chat and go into that SEO Bootcamp page. We will also have the SEO Business Day for sale individually if that's the training that you want. So give us a day or two to get the sales page updated with that information as well. Marcy wants to know, will this be on YouTube as well? Yes, we're starting. iThemes has a new and improved YouTube channel, and we'll get this posted on YouTube in the next day or so as well. We're still getting that process worked into our regular publication process, but it'll be up on the iThemes training website in just about an hour. I'll drop that into the chat, so if you want to go back and watch the replay, you can do so. So, Lindsay, awesome. Once again, great information today. Any last thoughts as we wrap up?
The biggest thing with keyword research is to actively get involved with it. So, definitely fall into that camp of someone that's on a continual evolution of doing keyword research for your brand, for your customers' brands, and rely on some of these qualitative tools to sort of demystify some of the quantitative data.
Excellent. Absolutely right. Good stuff. So thanks again, Lindsay, for sharing with us today, and thank you all for being with us as well. Hope it was a good investment of your time. I'm Nathan Ingram, and for all of us here at iThemes, we hope you have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next time here on iThemes Training, where we go further together.